In April 2024, the International Monetary Fund released a number that sent shockwaves through every major financial capital on the planet. India had officially become the world's fastest-growing major economy for the third consecutive year, clocking a GDP growth rate of 8.2%. To put that into strategic perspective, while the United States wrestled with a 1.9% growth trajectory, while the European Union stalled at 0.5%, and while China's vaunted growth engine cooled to a 4.7% crawl, India accelerated. But here's what the mainstream financial press almost entirely missed. The IMF simultaneously projected that India would become the world's third largest economy by 2027, not 2050, not 2035, 2027, 3 years away. And the engine powering that projection isn't abstract, it isn't ideological, it is structural, it is urban, it is geographic, and it is being built, right now, in 10 specific cities across the Indian subcontinent. Today we map those cities, we analyze the data, and we show you exactly why this rise is not a trend, it is a structural inevitability. Before we reveal the top 10 cities, you need to understand the macro architecture underlying this entire transformation, because most analysts, and most investors, are still reading India through a 1990s lens. They see a developing nation catching up. They are fundamentally wrong. What India is executing is not a catch-up story. It is a global leadership pivot, and the difference matters enormously. Pillar 1. Demographic compounding. India now has a population of 1.44 billion, surpassing China as the world's most populous nation. But the raw number is not the strategic asset. The median age is. India's median age is 28.2 years. Compare that to China at 38.5, the United States at 38.9, Germany at 45.7, and Japan, an economy in terminal demographic decline, at 49.1. What this means in macroeconomic terms, India has the world's largest working-age population entering its peak productivity years simultaneously. This is a dividend that cannot be manufactured, imported, or replicated by any competing power. Pillar 2. Digital infrastructure at scale. The Unified Payments Interface, UPI, now processes over 14 billion transactions per month. That is more than Visa and MasterCard combined across all their global markets. India's Aadhaar biometric identification system, the world's largest digital ID infrastructure, now covers 1.38 billion citizens. It has created a frictionless financial inclusion layer that took Western economies generations to approximate. This is not incremental digitization. This is institutional reconstruction at civilizational scale. Pillar 3. Geopolitical strategic autonomy. India's doctrine of strategic autonomy, maintaining productive relationships with Washington, Moscow, Brussels, and Riyadh simultaneously, gives Indian policymakers a negotiating latitude that no other major economy currently enjoys. When Western supply chains fractured post-2020, India did not panic. It recalibrated. The Production-Linked Incentive Scheme, PLI, attracted over $26 billion in committed foreign direct investment across 14 priority sectors in under 4 years. The global supply chain is structurally realigning around India, and these 3 pillars converge with extraordinary precision in 10 urban centers. To understand why these 10 cities specifically, we have to look at the data most macro analysts haven't synthesized yet. If you value data-driven analysis over mainstream narratives, if you want to understand the global economic order before it becomes obvious to everyone else, join our community of strategic thinkers. Hit subscribe right now, because the analysis we are about to deliver on these 10 cities is the kind of framework that typically lives behind $10,000 a month institutional research subscriptions. You're getting it here. Stay ahead of the global shift. City 10. Kochi, the Maritime Command Center. Most geopolitical analysts overlook Kochi. That is a strategic error. Kochi, or Cochin, sits at the intersection of the Arabian Sea Trade Corridor, the emerging India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, and India's rapidly expanding Southern Naval Command. The Cochin port, currently undergoing a Rs-8,000 crore expansion, is being engineered to handle Neo-Panamax vessels, the largest class of container ships in global trade. When operational, it positions Kerala's economic capital as a critical node in the restructured post-Suez trade architecture. The city's gift city equivalent, the Cochin Special Economic Zone, already hosts global logistics firms, IT exporters, and defense contractors. Kerala's Human Development Index is the highest of any major Indian state, giving Kochi a talent pool that most Tier 1 cities would envy. Second-order effect. As the China to India supply chain migration accelerates, particularly in electronics assembly and rare earth processing, Kochi's maritime infrastructure makes it the natural southwestern gateway for export-oriented manufacturing. Kochi is not catching up to Singapore. Kochi is building the infrastructure that makes Singapore's model look like a prototype. Macro Logistics Research, 2024. City 9, Ahmedabad, the industrial nerve center. Ahmedabad, and by extension, the Ahmedabad-Gandhinagar metropolitan region, represents something unique in Indian urban economics, a city that has successfully executed the transition from legacy textile economy to advanced manufacturing command center. The Dholera Special Investment Region, 9 and 20 square kilometers of greenfield industrial infrastructure, is the largest planned industrial city in India's history. It sits 100 kilometers from Ahmedabad and is being built from scratch, purpose-designed for semiconductor fabrication, defense manufacturing, and advanced electronics. The Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, DMIC, a $100 billion infrastructure mega-project, runs directly through the Gujarat corridor, making Ahmedabad one of the two anchor cities of India's most consequential manufacturing spine. Current data point, Gujarat accounts for 28% of India's total exports. Ahmedabad is the administrative and financial brain of that export machine. With Tata Semiconductor Assembly and Test Facility beginning operations in Dholera, this region is on the verge of a structural upgrade that will reposition it in global electronic supply chains. Second-order effect. As Apple's supply chain migration from China to India deepens, currently at 14% of global iPhone production and climbing, the Ahmedabad-Dholera corridor becomes a direct beneficiary of the world's most consequential technology supply chain realignment. This isn't just industrial growth, this is a permanent redrawing of the global manufacturing map, and India is holding the pen. City 8. Pune, the innovation manufacturing hybrid. Pune occupies a category that is genuinely rare in urban economic history, a city that is simultaneously a top-tier technology hub, a defense research capital, and a global automotive manufacturing center, and excelling at all three. The Pune-Mumbai Tech Corridor houses the Indian operations of Infosys, Wipro, Cognizant, KPMG, Deutsche Bank, and over 4,000 startups. The city's engineering colleges produce over 120,000 STEM graduates annually. But the structural story in Pune is defense. The Defense Research and Development Organization, DRDO, maintains its largest cluster of research establishments in Pune. The College of Military Engineering and multiple armament factories make this city the intellectual spine of India's defense self-sufficiency program. Under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Defense Initiative, India has committed to spending over Rs 1.7 lakh crore domestically, and Pune is positioned to capture a disproportionate share of that procurement budget. Second-order effect? As India's global arms export ambitions materialize, India now exports defense equipment to over 75 countries, up from just 3 a decade ago. Pune's defense industrial complex transitions from a domestic supply center to an internationally significant defense exporter. City 7, Hyderabad, the life sciences superpower. Hyderabad carries a nickname that is now firmly rooted in global pharmaceutical intelligence, the Genome Valley of Asia. This is not marketing language, it is operational reality. Hyderabad is home to over 200 pharmaceutical companies, 40 biotechnology firms, and the headquarters of Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, Divi's Laboratories, and Aurobindo Pharma, collectively representing a significant share of the world's generic pharmaceutical supply. When COVID-19 exposed the catastrophic overdependence of Western healthcare systems on Chinese active pharmaceutical ingredients, Hyderabad became a strategic recalculation point for global health security planners. The Bharat Biotech Campus, developer of Covaxin, demonstrated that India's vaccine manufacturing infrastructure is not merely cost competitive, it is innovation capable. This distinction is now driving a structural shift in how global pharmaceutical companies allocate their R&D and manufacturing investment. Current data, the Hyderabad Pharma City, under development at 19,333 acres, will be the world's largest integrated pharmaceutical manufacturing cluster. The World Health Organization pre-qualifies more Indian pharmaceutical manufacturers than those of any other country. Second-order effect. As aging populations in Europe, North America, and Japan drive an unprecedented demand surge in generic medications and biologics, Hyderabad dictates the terms of global healthcare supply. This is not a possibility. It is a structural inevitability. To understand why the city's cities ranked 1 through 6 represent an even greater magnitude of transformation, we need to look at the data through a different lens. City 6, Chennai, the advanced manufacturing capital. Chennai, formerly Madras, is the city where India's automotive miracle was born, and it is now the city where India's automotive revolution is being reborn in electric. Chennai accounts for 35% of India's automotive production and 60% of automotive component exports. It is home to manufacturing operations for Hyundai, Nissan, Ford's former India hub, BMW, Daimler, Ashok Leyland, and Royal Enfield. But the strategic story is in the transition. Hyundai Motor India, which operates its largest international plant in Chennai, has committed to manufacturing its full EV lineup for South and Southeast Asia from this facility. Ola Electric's component ecosystem is anchoring itself in Tamil Nadu's supplier base. The Chennai-Bengaluru Industrial Corridor is one of India's most advanced planned manufacturing zones, and it runs directly through Tamil Nadu's economic heartland, creating a 1,000-kilometer industrial spine of unprecedented productive capacity. Beyond automotive, Samsung's largest global R&D center outside South Korea is in Chennai. The Chennai port is India's second-largest container port by volume. The TIDCO Aerospace SEZ is positioning the city as a hub for aircraft component manufacturing, a sector where India is currently capturing significant share from traditional European suppliers. City 5. Kolkata, the Eastern Gateway. Kolkata is arguably the most misunderstood city in India's strategic geography. For decades, the mainstream narrative positioned Kolkata as an economy in managed decline, a former imperial capital living on legacy prestige. That analysis was a fundamental misread of Kolkata's structural position. Kolkata is the eastern command node of India's two most consequential emerging trade relationships: the Bangladesh-Bhutan-India-Nepal BBIN Economic Corridor and the India-Myanmar-Thailand Trilateral Highway, which, when complete, will create an overland trade route connecting Indian manufacturing to Southeast Asia's $3 trillion economic zone. The Sagarmala program, India's $82 billion port-led development initiative, designates Kolkata as the anchor for eastern seaborne trade. The Haldia petrochemical complex and the Durgapur industrial belt, less than 200 kilometers from the city, represent India's largest concentration of heavy industry outside Maharashtra. Newtown Kolkata, a 7,000-acre planned township, is now home to Cognizant, Wipro, TCS, IBM, and Infosys, signaling that India's technology sector has decisively recognized Kolkata's talent pool and cost arbitrage advantage. Second-order effect: as India's Act East policy, its strategic diplomatic and economic pivot toward Southeast Asia, matures from concept to corridor, Kolkata transforms from a legacy eastern port into the indispensable hub of a $5 trillion regional trade architecture. We are now entering the top 4 cities. These are not just economic centers. These are the command nodes of India's claim to global macroeconomic dominance. City 4, Bengaluru, the technology sovereign. There is a reason why over 400 Fortune 500 companies have established their India technology centers in Bengaluru. There is a reason why the city produces more engineering patents than any other city in Asia outside of Seoul and Tokyo. Bengaluru is not India's Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley was never India's benchmark. Bengaluru is building its own paradigm. The city's $50 billion IT export economy, the largest concentration of technology exports from any single city in the developing world, is not a service delivery model anymore. It is an IP generation and product innovation model. Flipkart, acquired by Walmart for $16 billion, was born here. Razorpay, Zepto, Swiggy, Byju's, Ola, India's most consequential technology companies emerged from this ecosystem. Infosys, a company with a market capitalization exceeding $80 billion, is headquartered here and serves as the technology backbone of governments and corporations across 6 continents. The Bengaluru Aerospace Cluster, anchored by the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited (HAL) campus and the Indian Space Research Organization (ISRO), makes this city the nerve center of India's space economy. ISRO's Chandrayaan-3 lunar South Pole landing in August 2023 was commanded from Bengaluru, making India the first nation in history to land on the lunar South Pole. Space industry second-order effect: India's space economy is projected to reach $44 billion by 2033, according to the Indian Space Research Association. As private launch capabilities, driven by Skyroot Aerospace, Agnikul Cosmos, and Pixel, scale up from Bengaluru's engineering ecosystem, the city positions itself as the commercial space launch capital of the global south. Current strategic signal: NVIDIA, Google DeepMind, Microsoft Azure AI, and Samsung Research have all dramatically expanded their Bengaluru research operations in 2023 and 2024, specifically to access the city's AI and machine learning talent density, which is now second globally only to San Francisco. Bengaluru does not follow the global technology cycle. It is increasingly positioned to set it. City 3, Delhi, NCR, the political economic command capital. Delhi, and more precisely, the National Capital Region encompassing Noida, Gurugram, Faridabad, and Ghaziabad, is not simply India's political capital. It is the administrative intelligence center of the world's most consequential emerging economy. The NCR's collective GDP exceeds $370 billion, making it one of the largest urban economic zones in Asia by absolute output. Gurugram alone hosts the India headquarters of Google, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, Deloitte, McKinsey, BCG, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and HSBC, a concentration of global financial and technology capital that would qualify as a top 20 global city by institutional density alone. But the strategic variable that makes Delhi NCR irreplaceable is policy proximity. India's Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Commerce, CB, RBI's Northern Office, NIT Aayog, and all foreign diplomatic missions operate from Delhi. In a nation where industrial policy, infrastructure spending, and trade architecture are being redefined at a pace unprecedented in modern economic history, proximity to decision-makers is a primary competitive asset. The Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, the Delhi-Amritsar-Katra Expressway, and the eastern and western dedicated freight corridors all originate or terminate in the NCR, making it the logistical nucleus of India's national infrastructure grid. Geopolitical dimension. Delhi is where India's strategic autonomy doctrine is operationalized. The Quad meetings, the G20 summit that India hosted in 2023, the SCO engagements, and the BRICS strategic communications, all are coordinated from this city. As India's geopolitical influence compounds, the institutions housed in Delhi accrue disproportionate global relevance. Second-order effect. The NCR is experiencing an institutional talent consolidation, as India's best legal minds, policy architects, financial strategists, and technology executives concentrate in this region. The city's output shifts from administration to governance innovation. Delhi is where India's global rulebook is being written. We are now at the top 2 cities. These are not just the engines of India's economy. They are the structural proof that India's rise is, at its core, a civilizational recalibration. City 2, Mumbai, the financial sovereignty hub. Mumbai is India's financial capital, but that description, accurate as it is, dramatically undersells what is happening in this city right now. The Bombay Stock Exchange, Asia's oldest stock exchange, and the National Stock Exchange together handle daily equity trading volumes that, in 2024, surpassed those of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. India's total market capitalization breached the $5 trillion mark in late 2023, making it the world's 5th largest equity market, overtaking Hong Kong and approaching the United Kingdom. The Gift City differential. The Gujarat International Finance Tech City, Gift City, operationally anchored by Mumbai's financial ecosystem, is India's designated international financial services center. It is being architected as a direct competitor to Singapore, Dubai DIFC, and London's Square Mile for global capital flows. Gift City currently hosts over 600 domestic and international financial entities, including global banks, insurance companies, asset management firms, and a dedicated IFSC banking unit with a regulatory framework specifically designed to attract offshore capital. The rupee-denominated bond market, the Masala bond market, is expanding its international investor base at an accelerating rate. Reserve Bank of India monetary architecture, the RBI's active management of the INR internationalization agenda, including bilateral currency swap agreements with over 22 countries and rupee-denominated trade settlements with Russia, UAE, and several ASEAN nations, is constructing the preconditions for rupee-denominated global trade. Mumbai is the city from which this monetary architecture is being deployed. Bollywood as geopolitical soft power. This requires acknowledgement because it is often analytically dismissed. Mumbai's entertainment industry reaches audiences in 190 countries. In markets across Africa, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Central Asia, Indian cultural content commands viewership that rivals or exceeds Hollywood penetration. This is soft power at macroeconomic scale. It creates consumer affinity, migration preference, and investment sentiment that operates as a long-duration tailwind for Indian brand equity. Infrastructure inflection point, the Mumbai Trans-Harbour Link, the longest sea bridge in India at 21.8 kilometers, the Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail, India's first bullet train corridor, and the Navi Mumbai International Airport, under advanced construction, represent a generational infrastructure upgrade that will dramatically expand Mumbai's productive geographic footprint. Second-order effect, as the China Plus One supply chain strategy shifts global capital allocation and Mumbai's gift city deepens its regulatory competitiveness, Mumbai is on a trajectory to become the primary capital-raising hub for Asia ex-China by the early 2030s. That is a structural repositioning of extraordinary consequence. Mumbai is not aspiring to be the next Singapore or the next Hong Kong. Mumbai is engineering the conditions to make those comparisons irrelevant. City 1. Ahmedabad-Surat-Vadodara Triangle, plus the India of tomorrow. City number 1 on this list is not the obvious choice, and I want to be very direct about why. We could have named Mumbai at number 1. The data would support it. We could have named Delhi. The institutional argument is compelling, but the city, or more precisely, the urban economic megacluster that represents the single most transformative force in India's structural rise, is the Ahmedabad-Surat-Vadodara Golden Triangle in Gujarat. Here is why this deserves the top position, and why most analysts have not yet synthesized this argument. Surat, the diamond and textile capital that is becoming a financial powerhouse. Surat processes over 90% of the world's rough diamonds. Its textile industry generates $40 billion in annual output. But the strategic elevation of Surat came with the announcement of Gift City's expansion southward and the development of the Surat Diamond Bourse, a $340 million facility that is now the world's largest office building by area, purpose-built to repatriate the diamond trading infrastructure from Antwerp and Dubai directly into Indian jurisdiction. This is not incremental. This is a deliberate institutional capture of a global commodity trading infrastructure, executed in under 4 years. Vadodara, the defense and aerospace anchor. The Vadodara manufacturing hub, anchored by the Tata Airbus C295 transport aircraft assembly facility, is India's first private sector military aircraft manufacturing plant. When fully operational, it will produce aircraft for the Indian Air Force and for export to allied nations, representing India's entry into an exclusive tier of global defense industrial capacity. The Vadodara Declaration of the India-US Strategic Partnership explicitly identified the Gujarat Aerospace Corridor as a key node in the bilateral defense industrial roadmap between the world's oldest and the world's largest democracies. This has direct implications for technology transfer, joint R&D, and long-duration defense procurement. The triangle's macro architecture. The Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, the Mumbai-Ahmedabad High-Speed Rail, the dedicated Western Freight Corridor, and the DMIC's anchor industrial nodes all converge in this triangle. The combined GDP of Ahmedabad, Surat, and Vadodara urban regions, when aggregated, constitutes an economic zone whose growth rate consistently outperforms every other comparable cluster in India. The China comparison. In the 1980s and 1990s, it was the Pearl River Delta Triangle, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, that catalyzed China's transformation from a developing economy to the world's manufacturing superpower. The Ahmedabad-Surat-Vadodara triangle is executing the identical structural logic, with a democratic institutional framework, an internationally compatible legal system, and a geopolitical alignment that makes it accessible to Western capital in ways that the Pearl River Delta never was. Second-order effect of compounding effects. When you combine Surat's commodity market capture, Vadodara's defense aerospace anchor, Ahmedabad's financial services infrastructure, Dholera's semiconductor ambitions, and the industrial corridor convergence, you are not looking at urban growth. You are looking at the emergence of India's most consequential economic zone, one that will define the nation's global productive identity for the next 3 decades. The Gujarat Triangle is not following a development playbook. It is writing the new one. This is the structural realignment that most Western policymakers are only beginning to grasp, and by the time the institutional consensus catches up, the foundation will already be irreversible. Let's synthesize what the data has shown us today. India's rise is not a singular event. It is not driven by one city, one sector, or one policy decision. It is the convergence of 10 urban command nodes, each reinforcing the other, creating a self-amplifying macroeconomic system of unprecedented scale and structural depth. Kochi controls the Western Maritime Gateway. Ahmedabad anchors the industrial corridor. Pune delivers defense self-sufficiency. Hyderabad owns global healthcare supply. Chennai leads the EV manufacturing transition. Kolkata commands the Eastern trade architecture. Bengaluru sets the technology paradigm. Delhi NCR operationalizes strategic autonomy. Mumbai architects financial sovereignty. And the Gujarat Triangle is executing the most consequential industrial cluster construction in the 21st century. These are not parallel stories. They are interconnected structural nodes in a single national economic architecture, one that is being deliberately designed, systematically funded, and strategically positioned to make India the indispensable nation in the global order that is now being assembled. The IMF says India will be the third largest economy by 2027. Goldman Sachs projects India will overtake the United States as the world's second largest economy by 2075. Morgan Stanley's 2023 India report called this the beginning of India's Tekad, a decade of technology-led transformation that will redefine global economic leadership. These are not optimistic projections. They are structural conclusions drawn from the data we have examined today. The question, the only question that matters for anyone watching this, is not whether India rises. India is rising. The structural momentum is irreversible. The demographic dividend is compounding. The infrastructure is being built. The institutions are being upgraded. The capital is flowing in. The question is whether you understand it early enough to act on it intelligently. We analyze data from the IMF, the World Bank, the RBI, NITI Aayog, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and over a dozen strategic research institutions to bring you this framework today. We identified 10 cities. We mapped their structural roles. We traced the second-order effects. And we showed you exactly why this is not a trend. It is a permanent shift in the global order. But here is what I want to leave you with. The question that every strategic thinker, every investor, every professional, every student watching this needs to sit with. In a world where India's urban economic nodes are collectively architecting the next phase of global macroeconomic dominance, how are you positioning yourself to participate, to contribute, and to benefit from the most consequential economic transformation of the 21st century? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And if you want the next level of this analysis, the specific roadmap of India's financial dominance, including which sectors, which instruments, and which policy windows represent the most structurally sound opportunities in the new global economy, that video is coming next. It is going to be the most data-dense strategic briefing we have ever produced on this channel. Do not miss it. The notification bell is not optional if you are serious about understanding this shift.